You just made me realize it's really bad for my Monday volleyball group because a lot of the players or a lot of the people that come are on Cloud9. And
worrying trend.
We're expecting them to get number one. Now they got to fly out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Your Monday volleyball group is screwed.
I think volleyball is screwed now.
It's screwed. And you love Pokemon Go, which you probably play at volleyball.
Well, we haven't done one yet, but I would have.
You would have. And now Pokemon Go's screwed too.
Dude.
Thanks, Cloud9.
Really, though? Cloud9, did they think about how this was going to affect me?
Yeah, exactly.
Selfish.
They did not think enough about Kobe in this situation.
That is screwed
his volleyball
up.
and his Pokemon. That is terrible.
Hello and welcome back to The Dive, driven by Kia, Season 10, Episode number 7, fresh off the finals. We just finished the finals. I mean, we just got a really good interview from Inspired as well, and the rest of Lyon. I thought it was cool that like we have these king chairs, these thrones for all of them, and as soon as he gets up there, he's like this. He's like, yep, that's another one. How many championships have I won? 5. Yeah, all good. Did I deserve MVP? Yeah, I think that's correct. I just try and win the games, and I get them. But yeah, it seems like the formula to win is you buy Inspired, you get Inspired on your team, you get some good players that are going to listen to them, and then you win.
Yep,
really good.
I mean, I feel really bad for Blabber. I'm a big fan of Blabber. He's been one of the best junglers in NA history. They were feeling really confident. I saw the C9 guys before the series. I think they were feeling really confident. I feel like almost everyone was thinking they were going to win this series, right? Like they were 12-1 in lock-in coming into this, right? So including playing Lyon earlier. Obviously, that was during the Swiss stage when they 2-0'd them, and Lyon was looking way worse. They obviously got stronger during playoffs, but Blabber and APA got gapped so hard. And there was a lot of big mistakes that were, I think, uncharacteristic, whether you want to call it crumbling to the pressure or being outplayed or whatever. It's hard to not think of some of these moments that felt pretty game deciding. Some of it is outplay, some of it is misplays, but I think to like the Annie counter pick and APA getting soloed there, that was, to me, so game-changing where, Lyon clearly knew the Annie pick was coming. They had banned it in game 1. Game 2, they left it up, and then they're flashing Annie over and over before they lock the Ahri. He picks it. He is just clapping him in the 1v1 in the early levels, right? In the first couple levels, he had him back to base, down like 10 CS pretty much instantly. Then Saint TP's back, and he kind of just disrespected him and tried to push out the wave before he backed off and used his own TP. And then Saint has this nice play, hits the charm, flashes to redirect the orb deception, gets the solo kill. All of a sudden, your counterpick now is losing. Then they're invading the jungle everywhere, getting kills. And then you have this Vi game where, we saw Blabber do this, get invaded, get pushed off by the Trundle, steals his topside camps, and then he does his blue side, like his bot side quadrant. And we were talking on the cast, I was guessing, he must have thought that Inspired then went to defend his red, and assuming Blabber would go there, so he's like, okay, I'm going to go to his blue, I'm going to go where he's not. But then he goes in, and he sees, and we even got the comms where he even says, oh yeah, he's on the Wolves, I see him. He uses his Q on Vi, then blast cones onto the Trundle's head, who has red buff, and it's like, you don't even win that if you have your Q. Without your Q, you don't even deal a point of damage. So, I mean, these are just plays where it's like, 1,000 times out of 1,000, Trundle wins that. There's just no world in which you don't.
Yeah, when he did that, I kind of took it as, I understand what he was seeing. Obviously, it wasn't very well calculated, but in his head, we heard the listen in. He said Trundle should be on the bot side because that's kind of what you do normally. You would do their top side, and then
defend your red.
You get a little bit of your top camps, maybe 1 or 2, and then you go to your bot side. But because Lyon had crazy bot prio, there wasn't really a world where Blabber could have just went to the red. So he figures, okay, maybe Inspired left some top camps up. I can get those and try to equalize it. But he ended up kind of doubling down. And I think when he saw that blue and Gromper gone, he thought, okay, he's on Wolves. There's no way he can still have Smite and have cleared as many camps as he did. Inspired, I think he cleared a little faster than normal because he didn't have a point in E. He had 2 points in Q and 1 point W, which isn't super standard. And so I think Blabber just made the read, okay, he probably doesn't have Smite. I can steal this Wolf and then kind of get back into it. But obviously he was miscalculated because, he used his Q and his Blast Cone to get in. And yeah, like you said, Vi can't fight Trundle at that point in the game.
Even if you smite the Wolves, though, how do you not die?
Right, and that's where I think it was really miscalculated. I think what he could have done is potentially queued in to go for the smite if he really wanted to. Granted, I don't think it's the best play, but then if he saved the blast cone as his escape and he flashed into the blast cone, then Trundle can't follow him. So I think that was an option, but obviously
He used
not what he did.
Glasgow.
Yeah, it was miscalculated for sure. The other option is just take the L and go to your Krugs, maybe try to get a crab, and then just focus on getting your respawn. But yeah, I mean, Blabber's very good, as we've seen it being the aggressor, the guy who's on the better matchup with winning lanes and whatnot. But it seemed like when he's on the back foot, he didn't handle it as well as you might have hoped. So he kind of just got pressured really hard and made some questionable decisions, like we saw at the Wolves. So
yeah,
yeah,
and that happens a lot with jungle, where enemy jungler, especially if they have some good lane states to help them do this, they can set it up so that you don't have really good choices. But then a lot of our junglers are then throwing away extra, more stuff because they're really trying to get out of this bad situation that they've been put in. I would say after that, though, too, we got we're talking to Dom on the sidelines, and he's like, yeah, just told him, we got to stabilize early. We got to not have crazy, funny invades going on early and stuff. And as he's interviewing Dom, we are watching as Saint level 1, before the minions are even out there, wards in the line brush to see if there's any wards that are going to be placed that would see Inspired go for the invade. Then Dokla also moves up to Krugs, wards the Krugs for him to see the exact timing that Wukong's going to go onto Krugs. And Inspired is on screen counter jungling him and splitting the map for the side that has the smolder and is their win con. And so you're just like, man, this guy is just, he keeps setting up really winning situations where you're going to get some good value out of it regardless. And then you can even shoot for the stars and have even bigger, better plays. And so this guy is just so good. It's kind of crazy. Like everyone's always just complimenting him, but he does deserve it. And we've put a lot of effort into getting comms listen-ins over the course of lock-in and really getting the actual, confirmation of how much direction he is giving, both in setups, level 1s, late game, lane assignments, team fights, how to use your abilities, when to wait for what, who to go for, all this type of stuff. And usually we talk about, if you're doing so much effort into shot calling, sometimes it makes you play worse individually. It doesn't seem like it makes Inspired play any worse individually. It seems like he thrives in this type of environment. And so it's just like, that is why Lyon bought the MVP and made this team around Inspired, and why even just buying in Berserker and Inspired is enough for people to go, oh, is this a super team? I know we had a poll with fans, and a lot of fans are like, it's not really a super team.
It's looking pretty super.
But it looks pretty super, especially whenever you got Inspired.
The start to game 4 to me was just like during the Dom interview, not that there's anything to do with what Dom's saying. What he's saying is great, but it's just like, and that one was more outplay than misplay, right? It's like you said, there's these multiple wards that are giving Inspired the information. He's going for this invade. He's double clearing the blue and the Gromp at the same time. And then C9, it felt like their whole draft strategy was around setting up for a winning bot lane, right? Where they did 4 bot lane bans, including double early enchainers. They banned Renata, Melio, then Zeri, then Rakan, all for the bot lane. And then they early picked the Bard because the Bard had been banned in second phase the previous game. And so they get like this, double range matchup. It's against a Poppy who has really like low snap engage threat. So Smolder can just stack for free off the Poppy, and you're gonna have this winning 2v2 against the Kai'Sa Poppy. And they build all for that. And not only does Inspired put Blabber way behind off this early play, he then immediately ganks bot and kills Vulcan. And it's first blood that goes to Berserker again. So it's like your whole draft strategy is already just trashed out the window. And it just felt like that happened so many times in the early games, in the last couple games. That being said, the games did not just end like that. They still stayed competitive and they stayed really, really close for a long time. And C9 just kind of got outplayed in a lot of these moments where it was Lyon members that were coming up big. Dokla on the Zehen game where he TPs in and catches APA with his pullback with that dreaded return. And then APA flashes out, but he's pillared in and he just dies. And then, in the final game as well, it's like they're getting this catch mid lane where then Sven looks like he's going to get away, but Vulcan, I think it must have been some sort of miscommunication, but like he tempered faded Sven, who had no flash, and then Dokla just flashes on his head. Everyone flashes in, and Sven dies, and that's the series, right? And it just felt like even when C9 was in a spot that you think they're in control, when they have the Hextech Soul and stuff, they just couldn't make it happen in these late game fights, and it just felt like they were the ones feeling the heat, feeling the pressure way more so than Lyon.
Yeah, I I don't know. I did not love C9's drafts. I don't think they lost because of draft or anything. I think that Lions was just playing really well.
Yep.
They kind of were all weekend. And so that was really cool to see, because one thing that stood out to me with Inspired is that in some of his past teams, e.g. FlyQuest, it was inspired with a bunch of young players who he could sort of mold to do what he wanted. And it's proved to be really successful. But this time he was coming into a team with players that were much more experienced and had stronger opinions on the game, like Berserker and Saint. And so initially...
Well, Saint is quite young, because this was like, he played last year, but that's it.
Okay.
For tier 1.
Yeah. I would say he's a pretty strong-willed player, though, as far as how he wants to play, right? He wants to be the star, he wants to be the carry, and whatnot. So that's what we knew coming into this. And so there was a big question there of how is Inspired going to do with, maybe other strong opinions on the team, because he's obviously very strongly opinionated. He's always been a very confident guy. And I think a lot of people were expecting them to kind of crash and burn in the sense of too many cooks in the kitchen, maybe conflicting egos, whatever, what have you. And in the beginning, it kind of looked like their team wasn't very synced up. There was a lot of Saint overplaying stuff and getting killed. And so it looked like the cracks were showing early, but the way that they bounced back, especially playing through Dokla, was something that I did not expect at all. And it kind of felt like, everyone sort of just fell in line to follow Inspired. So that just adds even more credit to how good this dude is, because he's made it work on teams with experienced players, with new players. It just seems like any team he's on, he just makes it work. And he's so confident. Everyone talks about the way he gives interviews and the way he looks at the game, as some people might see it as arrogant, but I don't know. When you win that much and what you do works so well, I don't think there's any other way to be. I think if he tried to feign humility in some way, that would even be weirder. I liked how direct he is.
Like, is he cocky or is he right?
Yeah, and so I loved watching good League of Legends get played, and so it's been really awesome to see, because Dokla is one of those players who last year didn't have a team, managed to get on 100 Thieves by being their coach into subbing in for a player, and they get to Worlds this year. He was going to not have a team again, but then he's subbing in as Lion's top laner because Zamudo has visa issues, and they win the split. So at some point, you're sitting there thinking, why is he not getting signed in the first place? So, obviously he's my former teammate, good friends with them, love seeing him do well. And just the stuff they were playing, when I first saw it, I saw their game back on Friday playing Varus top, Vayne, Irelia. When I saw those picks locked in, I'm thinking, wow, they're trying to lose fast. But making it work with those picks is super impressive. Having someone like Berserker on the team and saying, hey man, you just hold it down bot, I'm playing top side, and then they managed to pull it off. That's super cool to see, and definitely not expected.
He played all the meta stuff too, right? So he's doing it all. It's like, if you have a guy who can play the Varus, the Vayne, the Irelia, and make those work, and you also can just play Sion and Zehen and like all the meta picks and play weak side too, then you're just a really good top laner. And I thought he was doing even some really smart things, like in that last game. So they had full vision of Vlaber, right? And they have this Jarvan doing the steal on bot side. And so instead of interacting with the Rek'Sai that has this really strong early matchup against the Sion, he just went and proxied. He walked behind the tower and he's proxying behind the tier 2 tower, farming waves there. And so Thanatos isn't even getting to interact with him when Sion's kind of at his weakest in these early moments of the game, and just got a couple free early levels. By the time they're actually interacting, he already had levels, he already had armor, and Thanatos, I think, played a good game from there. But you've now navigated the early game without even interacting with him. And it got to a point where Thanatos was then the one proxying, but Sion's laughing if that's what's happening, because you're just outscaling him for free.
I didn't get the Rek'Sai pick there at all. I'm a Rek'Sai fan, but when they picked that champion into Cassio Poppy, I just don't know what the point of that is. Even with early kills, Rek'Sai can't do anything into that comp. So
it's just the Sion matchup. It's the Keen effect.
To me, that game, they really wanted to play side lanes, and so they were hoping, all right, we're going to get the normal Rek'Sai versus Sion advantage in our top lane side lane from the very beginning. Our Ryze is going to be powerful, and our Bard is going to be blowing people's flashes, and so we'll be able to make plays that way. But I 100% agree. As a Rek'Sai player, I'm not playing into that stuff. Like that stuff is mega, mega difficult. And with them reducing the effectiveness that Rek'Sai has on building Fury on minions, I don't think it's really that good of a top lane counter anymore, and does belong in the jungle. I will say, though, going back to the beginning of the series, because in hindsight, there's a lot of negative stuff to say about Cloud9. they started it out with a win. The first game was really exciting, back and forth, very close first game, and we saw some very good things from Cloud9. They were the ones that were really coordinated. Blabber on the Malphite, they kind of take it away for the Fearless effect, as well as being able to use it with the Orianna Shockwave. He does the same build that Inspired did with the cheap items into the Abyssal, and then you're going to have that with APA Shockwave. And really, Thanatos in that one, that was the kind of the biggest Thanatos, I think, advantage that we had in the whole series, as we're giving a lot of compliments to Dokla. Game number 1 was all Thanatos. And there was this Ambessa, and they had like the gank from Blabber when he was like a level 4 Malphite, and just walks up there, allowing Thanatos to get the kill. And Thanatos off that early advantage just really became an absolute menace on one of his signature champions, the Ambessa. And like that was the same game where he had this prediction on Berserker's Arcane Shift. And Berserker, and up until that point, was deathless, and he was like the hope, right, for Lyon, because he has had mega carry games all lock-in tournament for them, and Cloud9 had gotten some good advantages with their team play and with their team fights up until that one, and had a pretty good state at that time, and then it's like, oh man. They also kind of overchased. Dokla went in on the Narm. There must have been miscommunication because Inspired was walking back the other way. But then Thanatos comes down. He predicts the Arcane Shift. He gets the kill there also. And you're like, whoa. Cloud9. Yeah, Cloud9 are looking good. And, they're like that game number 1, I think, was something that showed what they've been showing for the majority of lock-in, where it's like, yeah, this team deserves to be, this is our number 1 team. And they've been our number 1 team for all of lock-in. But similar to how Lyon have improved over the entire lock-in tournament, they also then were able to show that in the rest of the series. And it's been so fun to watch. They've done it like you said, with the drafts have been really fun. The individual play has been fun. It hasn't been just one player hard carrying. I feel like we've gotten really big moments from all of the players online. Even Isles today, his Poppy game was insane, really good in the last one. Saint obviously had the mega carry games. Big Dokes had some really big ones. Berserker's been great the whole time. So it's been a cool story to watch too.
Yeah, I mean, Isles to me was player of the game in that last game. I thought he played really, really well on the Poppy. Set up a lot of good fights. But yeah, I was going to mention him as well, just because it feels like he is kind of the most overlooked guy on the team. Obviously,
100%.
Everyone else has a bigger name. Everyone else has more accomplishments. He'd never even made it to an LCS finals before. Before this, I guess you can't say necessarily that Saint had bigger accomplishments, to be fair. But he is kind of the one who is overlooked a bit. And coming into playoffs, I didn't think that their bot lane was playing like that well together. Obviously, they had that one series against like Dignitas with the sub bot lane that they just like super slammed them. But like other than that, there had been a lot of mistakes. And then you look at the bot lanes that they played against in playoffs, and they were doing really, really well. It's not just Berserker; it's them playing as a duo. They played against FlyQuest, who was getting so many 2v2 kills against everyone, including C9, including all these different teams. They slammed that bot lane. Then they played against Yon and Core JJ. They got the best of them. They played against Hui and Rahel, who a lot of people were looking at Rahel. Raz really is really high on him, and a lot of people think Rahel is one of the better AD carries in the league. They're besting them. Here today, didn't feel like C9's bot lane could get a lead a single time. So they're actually just playing really, really well as a duo. And yeah, Lyon is deserving of so much credit. I mean, it's a full team effort, and that is what I think brought them from being a team that looked pretty hopeless during the actual Swiss stage to besting Cloud9 pretty handily, a team that had only dropped 1 game the entire lock-in tournament up to this point.
Yeah, super good play from Lyon. I don't know if anyone could have predicted this coming into this weekend, because they didn't look like the same team from the regular season whatsoever. So yeah, just so much credit to them. And I think they're, obviously Inspired's leadership's huge, and I think their staff did a good job too. I know Inspired gave a shout out to Rigby, helping him kind of bridge the gap with Saint. I think that kind of thing can be super, super helpful, because if there's 2 players with, really strong opinions about something, sometimes when you talk directly to each other, it can, be a little destructive. But if you have that middleman who can kind of filter a little bit, soften the blows, and, get the message across without hurting feelings, that can be really huge. Obviously, I don't know if that's what's happening, but I do know that Rigby did help with like translations and like sharing Inspired's view with Saint. So I imagine that was super helpful.
Yeah, and Rainover too. Getting Rainover on the roster and huge improvements. They've given a lot of credit to him.
Yeah, I interviewed Saint. I honestly can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday because it's kind of blurring together at this point. But I interviewed Saint, and I was talking to him and asking him, before the interview and during the interview, what did you kind of credit with your improvement in playoffs? Because he had been honestly just kind of choking games, right? He had been getting caught. He had been failing a lot of just easy mechanical plays, and being a real problem for Lyon. And he said before he just felt like he didn't know what his role was supposed to be on the team, and that now he felt like he really clearly understood what his role was. And he understood, what he's supposed to be doing in every situation, how he's supposed to play out the game. And, when we're listening to all these listens, I'm just like, is everyone's role just listen to whatever Inspired says? It's kind of funny, but pretty
good role. It's proven successful role.
It is,
Some of the time his role is to slam the Ahri
kill.
and then solo kill the enemy mid laner a bunch and carry a bunch of team fights.
And then trash talk at the Nexus. that one was crazy because this is funny. I mentioned it a little bit on the cast, but so I went to the washroom in between one of the games. It was after game 1, when so Saint got away from the first Malphite gank and question marked APA and Blabber after their gank failed, and then they went back and they killed him or whatever, and then Vulcan's question marking him, and APA says something or whatever, right? And then in between the games in the washroom, APA and Saint are both there, and APA is like trash talking him in person in the bathroom. He's like, oh yeah, what was that question mark, Saint? You guys scared of me? You have to triple ban me? He's joking, but it's just funny, right?
Okay, sometimes I don't know if APA is joking. I've run into him in solo queue a few times, and yeah, he was flaming a bit. So I don't know how lighthearted it is. Some of it feels like there might be some weight behind the words.
Yeah, it's funny if it's kind of all jokey, but then if it gets...
I thought it was at first, but lately, I don't know. I'm not sure how jokey it is.
But either way, it seemed like Saint did not take it as a joke, right? Because usually players do not type at the Nexus ever. Or I feel like if it's anything, you just see GGs, right? And I always feel like when you have the all caps flame at the Nexus, that's something you've been you have bottled up. When I think about solo queue, people are mad the whole game.
Yeah, the whole game has been waiting to say it. He killed me at level 5 or something.
Yeah.
Something that I really wanted to see was with that solo kill, killing Annie as Ahri, I was wondering if he had the sudden impact?
Sudden impact?
That one, because I don't think Ahri's normally run it. But it was such an interesting solo kill because APA thought he was under 0 threat. He had 2 health pots, and he just didn't use them. So he obviously thought there was no world where he could die. He also had flash. He just took the charm and thought he was fine. So I was wondering if maybe that rune activated from flash to catch him off guard, or if it was really just the Q2 damage on its own that killed him. So yeah, I think APA was a little rattled dying there because if you're not even health potting or flashing, you think there is 0 threat to yourself, and he just, disrespected it and died, and that is not good.
they on cams over and over. We're seeing APA getting up like this every time he's getting killed. After that is it definitely was getting to him, but also. Let's be honest, a lot of people have stories of Saint and solo queue too. So it's not like we've got a couple of innocent angels playing against each other in these games.
I just like the rivalries.
They both have reputations for using chat significantly. So we...
good entertainment.
Yeah, we'll see. As long as they keep it clean,
Yeah,
that it is interesting to watch.
It just felt like after that chat, it felt like, oh, we have a real rivalry now. These players are really going to want to beat each other. And I was just waiting if there was going to be another solo kill, if there was going to be more typing and stuff. Mm-hmm. It felt like C9 maybe got told to clean it up a bit because it was all GLHSs and GGs and nothing else for the rest of the series. But it was definitely funny. Games Legend hasn't updated, so I can't actually see what his secondary runes were. I was going to try to check. He was obviously playing Electrocute, but I don't know what his secondary runes were. I'll see if it updates later.
Yeah. The GLHF story for Blabber is actually pretty funny. I remember hearing about it because when Blabber first started playing, he shared time with Sven Skaren. This was back in season 7 or 8 or something, a long time ago. And
the Swole Bros.
Yeah, Sven Skaren was actually the first guy. Obviously people have typed GLHF since the beginning of time, but Sven Skaren regularly did it every single game. And I asked him why he did it, and he said it was because back in the day, he had been banned in EU for, maybe not being the nicest guy.
Or not saying GLHF.
Yeah, so, they told him, okay, clean it up, try to be a little nicer. And he goes, okay, I'll just say GLHF every game. That's pretty nice. And so he started doing it. And then that rubbed off on Blabber, but they have a difference. Is that Svenskeren does it all one word, and then Blabber puts a space between GL and HF. And I mean, obviously Svenskeren's not playing anymore, but Blabber's kept the tradition alive.
So the space is really what
Very
kept the
important.
longevity in his career.
Very important space.
That's where
Blabber also is not one of these like mean typers in
No.
solo queue or anything. So he is an angel,
Yeah.
honestly. I have to say though, we all put Lyon too low. So we go ahead and flame us.
Yep.
We
fair
deserve
enough.
it. There
I
was
was feeling very correct after Swiss stage.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling very incorrect now.
Yeah, there were the pre-existing like, ooh, everyone's talking about, yeah, we don't think the personalities will work together.
Yeah.
The individuals could be very good. There were a lot of, people talking about their boot camp being quite bad and their
Yeah.
scrims being quite bad leading into it. And so we bought into the scrim bucks. We failed. You know what? I've been fooled many times. That also caused me to put Team Liquid first, the Scrim Bucks. Those were my two most wrong placements on my power rankings
Yeah.
were Lyon and TL.
Lyon, it looked like the Scrimbucks were correct though during Swiss Day.
Yeah.
because that was the reason I put them down there. Was I remember we were talking about it on our power rankings episode. I was saying that multiple pros had told me they thought Lyon was the worst team in the league based on scrims, and that it was their boot camp was a disaster, that everything had been a disaster.
And you told me that, so I moved them even one lower than
Yeah.
I had them previously.
Yeah, and it was kind of looking like that. That like people were saying, Saint wanted to play the game a totally different way than Inspired, that it wasn't working. And then that's what I'd heard, and that's what I saw on stage during the Swiss stage, right? And then in playoffs, I think it is so impressive, and they deserve a lot of credit for how they were able to fix that so quickly, because it did look like, it was funny when we first made those predictions, I saw a lot of angry LATAM fans, in the mentions and stuff. And then after a couple of games, I saw a lot of the LATAM fans being like,
Sorry.
sorry, we suck. This
They're
team
like, okay.
blows. Like, you were right. What's happening? They suck. And then, of course, now they've come back. So deserving of the credit. But yeah, it's just a crazy glow up and so fast, right? Because the lock-in tournament is quick.
Yeah, and I'm at the point where I'm like, your off-season plan should be first order of business. Let's check in on Inspired. Does he want to move to our team? If not, that's all good too. We'll go on to the next plan. But I'm just gonna check from now on.
It's a good
funny.
first plan.
Yeah, Inspired in the interview after this series, Kangas asked him about G2, who he's played against a lot on a lot of different teams, and is going to meet up again at First Stand. And Inspired was like, yeah. It's no secret. I've wanted to be on G2, and I've told them, and they never gave him a spot.
Yeah.
So he didn't add much more on that, but the implication is it's nice to beat G2, and I hope that they do play G2 and beat them.
Yep. They beat them last year 3-0 at MSI, then they lost to them at Worlds, right? Which that one obviously hurt.
Yeah.
And so now we'll see how they're going to look. It's going to be exciting. First stand is obviously going to be really, really tough. I just think Gen G is just looking so much better than every team in the world.
Let's calm down here. We're setting our sights on the LEC teams first.
Yep. True.
We will win the tournament later, but
But first, we're going to beat G2.
Yeah, step by step.
Yeah, all right, I'm with you. It's going to be exciting. They're obviously going there. And this tournament also locked in Sentinels as well as Cloud9 for America's Cup. That's going to be coming up next week. So, guys, make sure if you want to watch America's Cup, it is going to be our second and third seed, C9 and Sentinels, going up against the second and third seed from the CB LOL. And that is going to be day one. It's from Wednesday all the way till Sunday. It's every day in a row, so 5 days in a row. It's going to be double best of 3 on Wednesday, if I remember correctly, and then every other day is best of 5s. So going to be a lot of best ofs, so it's not going to be best of 1s. I will say I'm a little bit worried for our teams because they are literally flying to Brazil tomorrow, and then they are playing on Wednesday early. So that is a brutal turnaround to lose finals, get on a flight tomorrow, and then it is like a 24-hour plus trip, usually with layovers and stuff to get to Brazil. So then they're going to get there basically like Tuesday, and then have to play the next morning, potentially super jet lag. So I'm a little bit worried about that. But hopefully the teams can adapt quick, and it's a best of. It's not like a best of 1 or something. So
they'll be fine. I'm not worried. We got this, right?
Yeah, if not, the excuses are already lined up. It's all
Yeah,
good.
he's got the jet lag going.
built out.
We either win or we were jet lagged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I don't
actually-
see any bad scenario there.
You just made me realize it's really bad for my Monday volleyball group because a lot of the players or a lot of the people that come are on Cloud9, and
Worrying trend.
we're expecting them to get number 1. Now they got to fly out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Your Monday volleyball group is screwed.
I think volleyball is screwed now.
It's screwed. And you love Pokemon Go, which you probably play at volleyball.
Well, we haven't done one yet, but I would have.
You would have. And now Pokemon Go's screwed too.
Dude.
Thanks, Cloud9.
Really, though?
There you go.
Cloud9, did they think about how this was going to affect me?
Yeah, exactly.
Selfish.
They did not
honestly.
think enough about Kobe in this situation.
That is screwed
His volleyball
up.
and his Pokemon. That is terrible. Sentinels, I will say that series yesterday was actually pretty fun though. Sentinels were more competitive than I expected. I thought after they got blasted by Cloud9 in the upper bracket, when we were talking about it, we all kind of agreed, I think, to the best of my recollection, that whether TL or Lyon won, Sentinels was going to get clapped, right? And they actually, they lost 3-1, but they should have won game 4, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
And game 1, they won back-to-back team fights from down 5-6K, then got Soul, and then immediately got Ace in the jungle and the game ended. So it was like that game and game 4, I was like, those were so winnable, and I'm sure Sentinels thinks those were so winnable. And if they win those games, they either take the series or at least we're going to game 5 or something. So it's kind of interesting. At the end of the day, like they ended up being way more competitive than I expected.
Yeah, and Inspired, it was actually LLA did a remote interview with Inspired, where Lau asked him about that matchup ahead of time. Inspired gave a very good and detailed answer talking about how he thought Sentinels was stronger than TL before that even happened, before any of that happened, when most people were thinking, Sentinels are the worst ones up there of the top 4, and they're going to lose to whoever, like you're saying. But even ahead of time, Inspired was already like, no. I think Sentinels is going to be harder because of the team play, not because of the individual players, but because of the team play and how they view the game and how they play the game. And with especially Hambach and Huhi, who we've been highlighting, I think that is, really true and very powerful. So we've seen a lot of good, team fights and plays from them and improvement from them. And it makes me pretty confident, honestly. Yeah. Even they've been working on the communication. Yeah, it's going to be hard when still most of the communication is in Korean and they have to do lots of translating for Dark Wings. But at the beginning of Lock-In Tournament, we had a Pantheon Talia game with Hambach and Dark Wings. Hambach's flashing in for the stun. Dark Wings is running away. They brick the combo. Now they had a Rise Ambessa combo where Hambach is like half a screen away, and yet they're getting Darkwing's flash in for the root into the W flash ultimate from Ambessa, layering the CC perfectly and like assassinating their target. I'm like, well,
that's pretty nice.
That's looking way better. So yeah, the improvements for Sentinels are definitely there. And he gave a good interview as well on stage when I was talking to him, and he was talking about, we've been working on creating our own weapons. He phrased it.
The Inspired interview was really funny because he says, Sentinels are a better team than Cloud9. You're like, better than TL. And you're like, that's a nice thing to say. He's like, TL are all better individually. Yeah. Like, Sentinels basically don't have good individual players, but they play well together. And also Hambach and Hugi are pretty scary or whatever. But it was just kind of funny because it was like flame and compliment, He's
to
like,
both of them too. Because he was like, I don't know, but he basically sounded like, TL don't have any idea what they're doing, basically.
Yeah.
Or
they're really good individual players, but they're a horrible team.
But they don't understand how to play the game.
And Sentinels, on the other hand, great team, horrible players.
TL has been a pretty huge mystery as far as how they've done, because especially with all the Scrim rumors, or I don't even know if they're rumors, if it's just how the Scrims are going.
It's just how it is.
Yeah, but
I heard they're even still slamming everyone in Scrims.
Yeah, and that just, it makes me feel like I should take the reverse of what I hear about teams in Scrims, because it's good if you win Scrims, but I think if you win Scrims and you go around telling people you win Scrims, that seems kind of cursed.
What if you hear Dignitas is losing all their Scrims? Does that mean that you're going to believe in them to win the split?
Well, is Dig telling me they're losing all their Scrims?
I have heard that.
Oh, maybe.
I don't
know if it works that way.
I don't think it works backwards. It only works one way.
So it's not good if you're losing your Scrims, but it's bad if you're winning your Scrims.
And
I think if you're gloating about winning your Scrims, or having a sense of
they were gloating. Other teams were telling me that they're
exactly.
Okay, maybe that's the case, but I think if you have pride about winning Scrims in your Scrim record, it's pretty weird, because if especially if it doesn't show up on stage. I would keep it real hush personally, but obviously it's not what's going on. But just having that reputation for winning all the Scrims and then looking really, really whatever on stage. I think Liquid didn't look like a top team whatsoever. No. I think fourth, even fifth place based on their gameplay is kind of what I would have expected if you turned the name tags off for them. And
even Yon didn't look that good.
Yeah, it was weird watching that series. I mean, I expected so much more from them.
I've said it so many times over the course of my career, but I gotta stop trusting the scrim bucks, the scrim info that people are telling me. But it's so hard because
what else can you
it
base
feels
it
like
on?
insider
Not-
trading, and you're like, ooh, I got extra information, and I can use this, and then you're just still not trustworthy.
Yeah.
But you still kind of have to do it.
But I feel like mostly it is trustworthy. There are these circumstances where it's not, but like, yeah, some people were telling me that Lyon was bad, but most pros, especially after even a week or two when they were doing bad in Swiss, people were telling me that the top three was Lyon, C9, and TL from Scrims, and two out of the three were the top two teams, right? So I agree, Scrims are not everything. But I do think it's also not true that scrims are nothing. And the vast majority of the time, if I just like copy pasted the scrim rumors that I have into power rankings, you would do pretty well, right? I think it's like reasonably accurate, but there are exceptions. There are teams like when you think back to Energy, who did horrible in scrims and was reputed as losing every single scrim. I remember even hearing that the LCS weekend right before they won the championship, that they were scrimming tier 2 teams and even a collegiate team, and that they were getting ran by like collegiate teams and tier 2 teams, and then they won the title and then made it to quarterfinals, beat G2 when they were at like peak hype at Worlds. So there is those stories, and there's stories like TL who are owning everyone in scrims, an 80% win rate, and then can't make it happen on stage. But there's lots of examples of just, oh yeah, Gen G's really good in scrims, and it turns out, oh, also Gen G's just really good, or like, oh, C9's really good in scrims, oh, they made it to finals again. So I don't think that it's like that inaccurate. It just doesn't mean everything.
Well, it depends on how teams scrim a lot, because I think a problem with a lot of North American teams is when we go to internationals, you feel pressure to win the scrims because that's how you get more scrims with better teams.
Yeah.
But if you're then like showing a lot of stuff and like trying really hard to win all these scrims, then the other teams are gaining more information against you. And then that can result in this scrim bucks effect where, oh yeah, the team that is winning the scrims, then why doesn't it translate to on stage? Well, they're trying more and they're showing more, and then there's not there's a lot more like gain from the scrims by the other teams. And then you can talk about like, oh, where information goes between teams and stuff after as well. But
that's always tough though. It's true.
So
yeah, I mean, you want to scrim Gen G. Gen G can do whatever they want in scrims, and everyone wants to scrim
but
shit.
they're like, well, you lost everyone, so we're just not going to scrim you.
But if you scrim them and you get absolutely blasted, you're not getting any more scrims against Gen G. So you have
They'll cancel on you after a game or two if they think
horrible.
you're just too bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But obviously the very top teams who have proven themselves time and time again, that's the right that they earn. That's the advantage that they earn, is that when you go to Worlds, everyone wants to scrim against a T1, a Gen G, an AL, or whoever is kind of the top dogs in the LPL and the LSK. So they get their choice of literally every team, because every single team wants to scrim you. So they're going to take whatever is most advantageous. So you have to be competitive, like you're saying. Yeah. But if you're giving away all your stuff to be competitive, then that's a tough situation to be in. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'm excited for Sentinels and C9 in America's Cup. I think they're gonna do well.
We're gonna be there. We've got a special setup. We're gonna have some fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna be different. There's only a couple of us that are doing it. It's me, Kobe, Jat, and Kangas. So there's only 4 of us total.
It honestly feels like kind of like we're going back in time to some of these like.
Some days there's just 2 of us for the whole day.
Yeah, third party style things, but we got some fun cooked up, and it's gonna be a little bit looser, and we'll see what happens. It's gonna be starting
maybe something crazy.
It's gonna be 5 days in a row, and it's gonna be fun, and we're gonna win.
Yep, there you go. I'm with you on that one. All right, we're gonna go a quick break, and then we'll be right back, and we're gonna talk about the patch.
Dude, this lobby is kind of comfy. It feels different.
If this is different, I like different. I'm staying right here.
Are you guys serious? We're about to get into game.
Emily, let us enjoy it!
You guys need to lock in. Maybe this'll help.
Oh no, not already.
Welcome back to the dive driven by Kia. Patch notes, new patch notes are out. We got the Froxon tweet that we can investigate. What do you got for me?
I think it's short and sweet, and I like it.
Okay.
I like what I'm seeing. We were talking a lot in the previous patch about this topic of the bounce team like saying, oh yeah, it's okay to sometimes tie a champion to an item because there's this big discussion around Dusk and Dawn. It's a very polarizing item. It's a very specific item, and it had boosted the power of a lot of the really good users. And so they did go for adjustments towards the item as well as adjustments towards the champions that were most synergistic with the item. The item adjustments itself were not super big or anything. You know, it's moving a bit of power around away from the damage on the Sheen proc and into the health. But some of the champions just like really rely on it because if your win rate of the champion with that item as its first item completed is like 4% higher than your win rate with that champion with any other item completed, then you feel like you have to build it. But the Volibear change they put in, which is exactly what I was asking for, is that they are buffing up now the other builds of Volibear to be maybe not even equivalent, but at least close. So you don't feel terrible if you're doing another build besides Dusk and Dawn. So I'm very happy actually to see that because they've done quite a few adjustments, to this champion, and they didn't put specifics in, but I don't really need specifics. It's all good. They said their philosophy, which sounds good to me, of changing his AD builds because the AP ones are currently strong, and I've always loved how some champions in this game you can build many different builds, and it feels good to flex that depending on the scenario of your game and like what the enemy comp is, what your comp is. So I always really like that type of flexibility, and there are still some really, really good Dusk and Dawn users. Like Echo, I think, is still mega strong with it in solo queue, and Diana and stuff like that. So there's a lot of good options there. Plus, they sprinkled in some pro, buffs and nerfs in this, namely the mid lane, the trades that we always get. The Orianna, Talia, and Azir, all of them are on the list here for the nerfs. So I'm very happy about that. I think we actually will get some pro shakeup a little bit, or at least I hope we do with that. And then the Kha'Zix one I feel like is pretty solo queue focused, even though we've seen some of it used as counter pick in pro play. And I thought that was deserved because he's so insane with Umbral Glaive right now.
Yeah, you touched on most of it. Some of these Volibear changes make me a little hesitant to play much of the champion though, because
I stopped
over the past few seasons, it kind of feels like Riot just doesn't want Volibear to be a strong jungler because every time he's feeling strong and good, he gets nerfed almost immediately. And so it feels kind of bad because in my mind, he's more fair than a lot of stuff. I don't mind playing against Volibear, but playing against Talon or Zed just gives me a headache. But it might just be the case that in lower rated games, Volibear's ability to just snowball with Navori just gets way too out of control. So he just can't exist in a state where he's too strong or it's just really unfair. I don't know, but it's making me not want to put as much time into the character. But maybe he can be a balanced state at some point.
I've been through a long... when did I even start becoming Volibear? It was at least 2 years.
I was going to say at least 2 years.
At least 2 years. I've been Volibear, mostly one trick, definitely main. And when I started, he was actually at a 46% win rate for overall for jungle. But a lot of people were not building him AP and weren't building him correctly. So that win rate that you see on the stats site, I felt like was not accurate to what you could do with this champion.
Yeah.
And so I got that cool feeling of like, I'm the Cosmic Drive user and nobody's using the AP builds. They're just going the regular tanky slow Volibear. And so that was like fun, but then you progress over time and like everybody's figuring out the correct builds and then the win rate gets locked in. And now they've done a lot of changes that kind of reduce cooldowns and speed. And those make champions, in my opinion, feel a lot worse when you lose cooldown reduction and you lose speed. And so that's why I've, kind of finally moved away from him. I'm still happy that they're putting back build diversity. So, I think that's good, but they never put back the Q speed that they took out of him. That one was a bit painful. And the E. They've nerfed the E a whole bunch. I always thought that was really fun. The game around like casting it early, either flashing into it or like mind
getting the fadeaway E's.
Yeah.
That hits different.
Yeah.
There's no feeling like that. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I like playing him, but maybe it's just not meant to be.
Time to move on. Sometimes it's okay, you know.
True. Just got to play the latest and greatest. There's a pretty big buff to Hubris, which is pretty interesting.
200 gold.
Yeah,
Keeper?
I don't even think Hubris is a bad item currently, but
so few people buy it. So
it's competing with even more insane items. I think is usually what happens because the lethality champions, especially junglers, just kind of go insane because you can get Dirk on your first back, which speeds up your clear a lot. Your damage to champions goes up way high. But right now, you would normally rather get Umbral, which, obviously the ward clearing is really good.
Or
the
Blade or Opportunity.
Yeah.
Most of them.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really good options. Profane Hydra into Axiom Arc is really common as well. So I think that there's, a ton of really good lethality items, and Hubris will maybe just be bought more now. It's still a little iffy to me when you would want this over an Umbral. I mean,
it's so snowbally.
It is, yeah. It's a really snowbally item, but I mean, 200 gold's a lot, so
yeah,
maybe lethality champions will just be even happier now.
Yeah, I mean, if you get it early, you get it much earlier. You're going to start stacking it earlier, so this is like a really good way to buff the item if it's going to be good. I was at the point where like Dark Seal, for example, is kind of like a snowball item, and I would just buy it every game regardless, just because the upside is so good. Unless I'm like trolling and dying on repeat, then it's gonna probably have really good value. But yeah, Umbral, I just say Umbral has been so insane, and that's part of the reason why Kha'Zix was so good in solo queue. And so I think this is a deserved solo queue nerf. Still think he's gonna be fine there. It's interesting because we just had a Mel carry game from Sven in the finals.
Okay, that was really surprising to see. I do not think Mel is a good champion right now. I think that
neither does the balance team. They're buffing her.
Yeah, well, so every time I see Mel in game, I think she's actually okay in lane. I don't think laning is her weakness, but she feels like a champion that falls off really hard after level 9. And, I think level 9 to 11 first core item, she's decent. I think there was that play today we saw from Sven where he just kind of hit a QE, reflected some damage on Ashe, and then ulted and one-shot her kind of. Yeah. And Mel does that, but as the game goes on, you don't really get that much more damage, because her W doesn't always deal damage to people. I think her E, the amount you get per level you put into it's not that high. And so eventually champs just keep getting more and more HP, but your base damage doesn't go up in the same amount. So she kind of loses that ability to one-shot, and then her range is pretty small. She's not very mobile. And her cooldowns are actually pretty long as well. So I think she just struggles to be relevant past early mid-game. And even then, she's not that good at those points in time. So
they didn't even win the 2v2.
Yeah, I was super surprised to see C9 actually lock that champion in because every time I see her in solo queue, she looks like actual free loss champion. And I understand the theory behind it of, you're up against Ashe Seraphine, which is kind of a bully lane. So a lot of people pick these neutralizers. You'll see Jhin rushing swiftness boots or a mage or something. Just someone that's not going to get run down and bullied. Makes sense, but I don't know. You can reflect Ashe ult, but I think if Ashe shoots her ult at a Mel with reflect available, he's not trying to win the game. So, yeah, I don't know. I kind of get the idea, but I think she's just not strong enough to justify it.
Yeah, I think they probably assumed they were going to get a lot more of an advantage in the 2v2 than they were. I mean, Berserker was playing super confidently, I felt like, in that one, where he was just standing in their face and like basically making them spend spells on him. And then if he sidesteps it, well, now he's just walking at you and autoing you down, right? Because Nami Mel obviously has a lot of poke and it has sustain. It's supposed to be pretty annoying, but Rainover, we had a sideline interview with him where he's saying they scrimmed against it once and they got really behind in lane against it. So that's probably what the thought process was, I'm assuming. And yeah, of course, it's like it's the Ashe's fault if they shoot the arrow into the Mel reflect, but at the same time, it does limit your opportunities to use the ult, right? And I think similarly with Encore, it's like something you always have to play around for Seraphine ult. So I kind of understood the thought process, but and mages in general are a really popular bot, but it's not like one of the highest win rate ones. I know when you look on the win rate sites right now, it's like Brand and Heimer and Veigar and Victor and Karthus and Hui and like Lux, and there's all these champs that are low pick rate but really high win rate. So I know.
I think Veigar he's a good mage.
I think just Enchanter plus Mage bot is really strong in general.
Yeah. Oh, actually, because they were playing with Nami, this one combo that I've seen more lately in solo queue than you would expect, but it's Aurelion Soul with Nami bot lane.
Yeah.
I've not seen that combo lose. That combo, I don't know, something about the way Aurelion interacts with Nami and the E on his spells, like he just goes so insane. That combo is so strong.
Have you played against Yozu and Cupid? Because I casted a tournament with them, and those are rank 1 players that do the Lux and Zoe combo. It is crazy abusive. Like one thing lands and you're
dead.
You're actually dead. And they did it all the way to the top of the ladder. So I don't know. I think that it might be cool when if that stuff first comes into pro. It's not cool when it's the best and it stays.
And it's horrible to lane.
But but it's so cool when we get sprinkles of it, right? And when it first comes, you're like, ooh, something new, exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do the Zig Sona is another one of their pocket picks they do a lot. I don't know I've never had to lane against Six. So I try my best to avoid playing bot lane, especially in games that I care about winning. But it is one of those interesting questions where I could totally see it working in pro play, but it's just so far removed from what teams are practiced at.
Yeah.
Because I think Lyon, like the way that they just started playing around topside this weekend for the playoffs, caught everyone by surprise. I think Liquid especially, everyone seemed to just be set on tanks top. Everyone's playing bot, stacking dragons. That's what we're going to do. And then Lyon surprised me through a curveball. They said, actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to lock in some really degenerate top lane bullies, and we're going to win through that. And so, we were talking about it last week. Morgan should have had the upper hand versus Dokla on paper and past results, but, there's only so much you can do in those matchups. Renekton versus Varus, Camille versus Vayne. Not very playable lanes, unfortunately. So that was really cool. And I think that if there was a team who had bot laners that were really comfortable with this, and you had teammates that could fill in the weaknesses for it, because I think a big reason why some of this stuff doesn't show up in pro is just because it's so different from how you play in these standard team comps with scaling 80 carries.
Yeah.
It's kind of like everyone's role in the team is different now. Your guy who is used to just getting all the resources and attention and safety, now all of a sudden they have to kind of pressure more because their champion doesn't infinitely scale in the same way. And other people who maybe play the engage playmakers have to play more of a carry role and sit back and wait for stuff to happen. So that kind of thing I think is a pretty big deal. And so people are just like, what's the point? Why not just do the stuff that works that we're used to?
It's not just, our bottom lane has to learn 2 new champions. It's like everybody on the team has to learn new either champions or how to play with those champions. And so it requires, investment from everyone.
And I always think that it's much easier to learn the lanes than it is to learn your role within the game after that, right? It's like,
I got a melee brain. So then I gotta, be playing some range champ then.
I'm so bad at playing champs that can't go in first. Sometimes I'll play Echo or Viego, and I understand what the champion does, but I just, if I see someone out of position, I got to go in on them. But then it's like,
it just doesn't
you engaged on Viego, you blew their flash, but you died. That's not very good.
Yeah.
You just got to sit back and wait. And I know myself, I don't like doing that. I want to go in. So, put me on Zach, Volibear, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the same for a lot of players. You kind of have a style that you default to, your vision for the game. And so playing to your strengths is obviously the best. You should try to be adaptable, but not everyone is perfect at everything.
I mean, we saw this a lot when mages got really popular bot a long time ago. It was a time when Reckless even subbed himself out because he's like, you have to play mage bot, and is this idea that it's like, could Berserker and Isles practice these 2v2 mage bots? I'm sure they absolutely could, and they could probably get really good at the lanes, but I feel like it is, A, is it worth all that investment? And then B, they have played, I don't know, how many games of League of Legends has Berserker played? 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, 20,000? I don't know, so many, right? And almost all of them are on an 80 carry, and you know exactly your role no matter what the game situation is, how to play out the team fights. Do you kite back? Do you position forward? Do you need to flex on them and force them to use abilities on you? Do you need to follow up? Your role no matter what and how best to win the game. And when you take yourself off of that kind of comfort zone and put yourself into a complex situation, in a high pressure situation, I just felt like when we saw 80 carries moving on to Lux or Vlad or whatever, they clearly did not understand their role in more complex situations. And that's something that you cannot practice quickly, right? It's like playing mages and knowing how to play control mages perfectly, that takes a long time. So I do think it's a really big time investment.
I do hope, though, that we get some shakeups for the coming games, because I think this patch hits a lot of really good points. We mentioned the mid lane,
Nico change,
big champions, and for bottom lane, Varus and Nico. Mm-hmm. So 2 really good hits there. I think I think they're pretty locked in.
It's only a matter of time till Lee Sin rears his head up again because he's been showing up in a lot of patches.
Getting a couple buffs
and
every
honestly,
patch. Huh?
I don't even think he's bad. I see him in solo queue fairly often, and he seems totally solid to me. I don't really feel like he's a champion that is weak or anything like that. And so they just keep buffing him. I think they really want him to show up in pro because you know he's
cool.
a staple pro play champion. He's got those high moments. And then there was that other post from Freak from one of his patch rundowns, I think. But basically, he just talked about how they are trying to shift their balance philosophy a little bit away from just win rates and number changes to more of feel oriented, where we want the champion to be good at what it seems like they should be good at, rather than just trying to like make them super balanced and fair or whatever. And they talked about taking away the extra cooldown on Lee Sin's ward jump because
And the shield, right?
I think so. Yeah, that sounds right. So because that's a huge one. Lee Sin, he used to be able to just ward jump and then have the shield and the mobility and not the extra cooldown. But now, if you jump to something that's not an ally champion, you basically just don't have your W again for the whole fight. So that's going to be a huge change. I guess that being good for lane Lee Sin as well, because if you can just jump to minions all the time, still get the shield, dodge stuff, that's massive.
That reminds me of the old like Ravenous Hydra Lee, where he just every time you stepped up to the last hit a minion, he'd W onto the minion, EU, like Ravenous the wave, QU, you know, like.
Yeah, I was also kind of thinking, how would that work for support Lee Sin? Because back in the day, when Lee Sin was jungled, he would buy Sightstone or the Tracker's Knife, which had words built in. But nowadays, you're pretty limited in how many words you actually get as a jungler. If you're just spamming control words all the time, you're not going to have a lot of items. But support, you know, you get 4 wards every time you go back to base. That's 4 W's you can just spam around the map.
I like the way you think. Some fun combos, some possibilities there.
Well, should be fun. It's been a really fun lock-in tournament. Hopefully you all at home enjoyed it. We got to meet a lot of people today as well who were all talking about
It was
watching
so
the dive.
fun today, by the way. From the very beginning, like everybody was juiced up. Everyone was like, "Oh my god, you know, could I get a picture? Sign this. I've been watching you." Blah blah blah. And I just had shout outs to all the fans that came today because I had really good interactions with everybody all day.
Yeah, the atmosphere was amazing. We got to meet a ton of dive fans. I met probably, I don't know, between 5 and 10 people who told me yesterday and today that they have watched the dive for like 10 years now, right? They've been watching since the first season, or I guess it's not quite 10 years, but about that, right? So they've been watching since like at the start of it. So shout out to all you guys who have stuck with us for all these years. Had a lot of fun at Lock-In and excited for America's Cup that is going to be coming up. And then, of course, First Stand right after that. We got a lot of League coming right at you. So that is going to wrap it up for us on the dive, driven by Kia. Be sure to subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube so you don't miss an episode of The Dive. Also, leave a comment. We're going to keep grabbing some questions from them over the weeks. America's Cup begins this Wednesday, March 4th at 1 p.m. Tune in to support our NA teams. We will see you there.